Everybody, I'm going to start. I'd ask that everybody put themselves on mute so that there is no feedback, because every once in a while, if people aren't on mute, we can hear everybody. So there should be a way for me to mute everybody, but I can't find it, so I'm not going to do it. So I just ask that you put yourselves on mute. So this obviously is a quicker turnaround than we usually have. I did that on purpose. As you all probably know by now, we entered into a settlement agreement with Prospect Medical Holdings and the Angel Pension Group. The terms of that settlement, and there has been some information in the paper which I want to clear up today. It was either misquote, or it was, I guess I'll say, inartfully drafted, which created some confusion for some people. So
that's but he's talking to somebody else.
If everybody could put on mute, I would appreciate that.
Mute.
All right. So to give you the details of the settlement and where we are and how long it's going to take and things like that. So the settlement is a $30 million settlement. 27.25 million is coming from Prospect Medical Holdings. 2.75 million is coming from Angel Pension, for the total of 30 million. That settlement is subject, just like the last two settlements, is subject to the approval of Judge Stern, which, if it does not happen before the end of this month, will happen in the early part of February. And it is subject to the approval of Judge Smith. Because Judge Smith, who is in the federal court, is part of the class action. The class action requires a certain amount of notice to be provided to the attorney generals from around the country, all class individuals. And so there is a lengthy process by which we have to provide notice to those people. So it is likely that the settlement on the federal court side, although the settlement on the state court side will be relatively quick, the federal court side will probably take somewhere in the vicinity of 6 to 9 months. So by the time we get Judge Smith to approve it, because we provided all the notice and we provided all the timeframes. Just a reminder, there are a couple of people that aren't on video that do not have on mute. If you could. Let me see. Okay, I think I've muted some. All right. Because of the process and the notice period and the timeframes that are necessary for notice, the federal court likely, even without any opposition, will take at least 6 to 9 months to get it approved. That's just the time frame under the class action laws that is required. That's not as a result of any delay or any chance that the court won't or would have problems with it. That's assuming no problems at all, no opposition, and no delays for any reason at all. Would be the fastest track, would be 6 to 9 months. Then the money would come in. So we're looking at, it's January now, 6 months obviously puts us in June, 9 months puts us somewhere in the vicinity of September. So we are looking at that time frame, sometime between June and September, which would be the time frame by which the settlement would be approved by the state and the federal court. One question you may have is there anybody who can object to that settlement? The answer to that question is yes. The Roman Catholic Diocese, the bishop, and those entities which are not part of this settlement could object to the settlement. I haven't seen anything because, quite frankly, nothing's been presented. So while it's possible that the diocese could object to it, as we sit here today, we don't know if they will. If they do, we'll deal with that. If you remember, we did have objections to both of the prior settlements. Those settlements were objected to by Prospect as well as by the diocese. And we were able to get past those objections and get the settlements approved. Ultimately, I believe the same result will happen here. But again, the diocese does have the ability, if they want to object to the settlement. The settlement, as I said, was with Prospect Medical Holdings and Angel Pension Group. The diocese did not participate in the settlement, and they are not part of the settlement. So no money is coming from the diocese in connection with this settlement. There was a quote, or there was some language that was quoted to me in the Providence Journal, which seemed to indicate two things. One, it seemed to indicate that the diocese would be paying a substantial sum of money, and there was an indication that the pension is 100% now. I'll deal with that last one first. The pension is not at 100% now. We have approximately, as of the end of November, about 50,000 shy of 60 million. This money will supplement that. I'm sorry. We have a little shy of 70 million. There's, I keep forgetting that there are two accounts. There's accounts with Schwab and there's accounts with Mercer. So there's 59,943,000 with Mercer, and then there's another 10 million or so that's sitting with Schwab for a total of about $70 million. This settlement will net, assuming all approvals, assuming everything goes through the way the last one did, this will net approximately $24 million to the plan. So that will put the plan somewhere, if we use today's numbers, or actually the end of November's numbers, somewhere in the vicinity of about 93 to 94 million. If you all remember, when we started this back in August of 2017, we had approximately 86 million. So this settlement not only resets the financial picture, but actually gives us a few more million to play with. We are still running at about $1 million a month in terms of benefits. That's not going to change. And obviously that does not make us whole. We have collected at this point in time, between the three settlements, assuming this one is approved, we will have collected a gross amount of approximately $48 million. And if you remember back in the early stages of this, the indications from the actuary were that we needed about $120 million to make this plan whole. So we are still a ways away from the goal of what was indicated by the actuaries back 3 to 4 years ago. But obviously this helps substantially. And my quote in the paper about 100% was that this allows us, as the litigation continues with the diocese, allows us a cushion to make sure that we can still pay out benefits to everybody who is currently getting them and to those people who may apply in the interim for benefits. That basically we've got funds now. Back in 2017, we were told that there was a runway for the plan of about 10 years, 7 to 10, 7 to 12. We are back at that same cash position, a little bit stronger now than we were. So the indication is that we have basically reset that runway. So my indication to the Providence Journal was not that the plan is 100%, was not that there's a guarantee of 100% payments for the life of this plan, but that litigation, which could go several years. I don't know who did this. Gene Wiley. There we go. Okay. I just lost everybody for a second. I apologize. So that what the litigation could take, assuming no settlement with the diocese, we go to litigation. The litigation could take 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, could possibly take more if there are appeals.
Oh,
So there's no guarantee that we will get a settlement with the diocese. There is no guarantee that they will pay anything. My quote in the newspaper was that it is my hope that whether it be through settlement or through judgment, that the diocese will pay a substantial sum. But they have not committed to anything. Obviously, we all know there is no judgment against them. So there's no money coming in from the diocese. The only money that's coming in is through this settlement with Prospect. Prospect and Angel, I apologize, $30 million. The other question that people have asked, and I want to answer that right out of the gate as well, is if I applied for my benefits and I applied for early retirement, is there any way that I can change my election? Can I basically suspend my early retirement, wait till I'm of normal retirement age, and then kind of check in at the higher amount of money? Unfortunately, the answer to that question is no. Once an election is made, then that election is what you have elected, and there's no way to go back and either suspend that or change that so that you could potentially collect on a standard retirement rate as opposed to the early retirement rate. That was a risk at any time with any pension plan. That's the risk of electing for the early retirement. You get your money sooner, but you get a substantially lower sum as part of your benefits. And then the other thing, which I guess I'm trying to anticipate questions, is there continues to be no adjustment in benefits. There will be no adjustment in benefits. This is an ERISA plan now. I made that election voluntarily, and under ERISA, I cannot modify, and the court cannot modify your benefits unless we modify the plan. So there is no adjustment to benefits that's happening. What you've been receiving, you will continue to receive. And if you make an election, whatever the actuaries tell you your election would calculate to into a monthly payment, that's what you will receive. Excuse me. The last question that I'm anticipating is the PBGC. PBGC is aware of this settlement, just like they were aware of the last two settlements. They have not contacted me in any way about this one any more than they did the last ones, which they didn't contact me about that. And so there's been, other than me communicating with them by providing them with court filings, there has been no communication by the PBGC. And I don't have any way to predict or anticipate whether or not they will, in fact, contact us. As we all know, there is a new administration coming in. With that new administration coming in, many things can change. But at this point in time, I've got no insight and no indication from that agency as to if they're going to take the same position or a different position. I will tell you that it is my assumption that they're going to continue to take the same position, which is to just watch and monitor. We are doing the litigation, and we are settling and putting money into the plan through that litigation. And it's my educated guess opinion that the PBGC is happy for us to do that type of legwork, because the alternative would be for them to pursue that litigation. So they probably want us to do it. And then after it's done, then they may take a look and take a position on what they're going to do. So that's where we stand right now. Just to kind of summarize before I open it up for questions, is we've got a $30 million settlement that is with Prospect Medical Holdings and its related entities, as well as Angel Pension Group. That settlement is a total of $30 million. 27.25 is being provided by Prospect. 2.75 is being provided by Angel. I am aware that Prospect had provided information to its employees and put out certain statements. They were permitted to do that under the settlement agreement. And whatever they said there was no agreement to what was going to be in that press release or not in that press release. I'm telling you from my position what the settlement is. and the settlement is $30 million, subject to both Superior Court approval in front of Judge Stern, which will happen either at the end of this month or the beginning of next. And then I will be able to present it over to Judge Smith in federal court. And that process, because of the class action nature of that lawsuit, has timeframes that are required, which will push approval of the settlement in the federal court likely to a 6 to 9 month period. And of course, I don't have any way to gauge whether or not there's going to be a challenge from the diocese. And if that happens, then we'll obviously deal with that. But not being aware of whether or not that's going to happen, I'm looking at the 6 to 9 month time frame. And again, the diocese did not contribute to the settlement that we entered into with Prospect and Angel. They are not contributing to it. They did not participate in it. I cannot tell you why they didn't participate in it. That would have to be a question for them. But I do know that Prospect and Angel did. It's been a very long process to get to the settlement, but I am happy that we are now at the settlement. And I am hopeful and confident that both Judge Stern and Judge Smith will ultimately approve the settlement as it has been drafted between the parties and get those funds into the plan to help this plan as we continue to litigate with the diocese. I guess before I go to questions, I do have a question that was sent to me. What's the status of the Prospect Charter Care application to change in ownership that's before the AG and the Department of Health? That is currently still pending. One of the aspects of the settlement agreement is that we withdrew our objection to it. So that has been done. It's my understanding, though, for various reasons, that that's on hold. Those reasons are related wholly to the regulators and I guess their staffing. So there has not been any further action on that application. In addition, I read in the paper, and I don't have any more insight into this than you do because I read what I read in the paper. It's my understanding that Senate President Ruggiero has put together an oversight committee, which is going to review not only the process, but Prospect's application. And he has suggested a 1-year moratorium on for-profits going through of any party, buyer or seller, going through a change of effective control for a hospital. From the paper, and again, I'm taking my information the same as you get it from the Journal and Go Local and Rhode Island Business News, things like that. The Senate President is not happy with the information that he has gotten, and he's taking whatever action he believes is within his power and appropriate for the state as a whole. Because, as I said, from what I read in the newspaper, he put a moratorium on a change of effective control for all for-profits. It wasn't limited to Prospect's application. That's in a nutshell what we have. It's a lot of information. A lot has, last time we were together was about a month ago, and a lot has changed. In that time, the settlement was finalized right around the 2nd or 3rd of January. First, 2nd, or 3rd. I actually think that I put my signature on some of the documents on December 31st. So it is, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, it's hot off the presses for the most part. And I will open it up to any question. And as always, I will answer the questions as clearly and completely as I can, but there may be some things I can't answer for various reasons. I will tell you if I can't answer it, and I will tell you why I can't answer it if that's the case. Any questions? You can either direct message me, or you can, if you want to, I don't know if you can take yourself off mute. If you can't, then send me a message and I will take you off mute, or I will read your question and answer it. John, do you have a question?
Yes, if you don't mind. I understand the money is going to be put in escrow. Is that correct?
The money is actually being transmitted in two forms. The money from Angel Pension is going to be deposited into the registry of the court, and the money from Prospect Medical Holdings and those entities is going to be provided via a letter of credit through JP Morgan Chase Bank. And I have been told that I will be receiving the original letters of credit for Prospect's money via overnight mail on Wednesday. So they'll be sending them out tomorrow via overnight FedEx, and I will get them on Wednesday.
Will that money be earning interest until while the approval is pending?
The money in the registry, I do believe, gets some interest. It's de minimis, but there is some interest. I believe the letter of credit does carry some interest, John. I can confirm that with you. But that was one thing that we were looking at when we were trying to decide how we were going to structure payment. Any other questions? I've got Wayne. I just asked you to unmute Wayne. I don't know if you can.
Can you hear me?
No, I'm
I
on
can.
mute.
I got you now.
So I have a general question. So we have been established as an ERISA plan now.
Yes.
Shouldn't the
PBGC?
yes, shouldn't they automatically kick in once we're in ERISA plan? If
No, there is
pension
a
failed or no?
there's a structure put in by the PBGC, and this is separate and apart what we're doing on the litigation. I'm just going by their own rules or regulations. I'm obviously challenging this in certain ways, but there's what's called a 5-year phase-in. And in essence, what that is not to oversimplify it, but it requires a plan that was not covered under ERISA that has now voluntarily elected to be covered under ERISA to basically pay premiums for a period of 5 years before PBGC will provide coverage. PBGC gets to determine when that 5-year phase-in date started. Obviously, the lawsuit, and again, not to oversimplify it, the lawsuit is a way to challenge that, because our argument is that it was an ERISA plan well before I got appointed as receiver. So that's an issue that we're dealing with in the litigation. But assuming either that doesn't ever get to the judge's desk to make a decision because we've settled everything out, or whether or not we get to that 5-year phase-in before PBGC needs to kick in, it may become a moot issue. But it's not automatic. Once you start paying premiums, they automatically cover. There is a period of time, and it's a 5-year period, which PBGC determines when that clock starts running for that type of coverage. They can come in at any time, even before the 5-year phase-in is up, if they make a determination that they should or need to. But that is for them to make that determination. I can't file anything and force them to come in earlier.
Okay. So I started with the hospital when I was very young.
Yeah.
It'll be 40 years for me this coming June. I am not close to 65 yet, and I have not put in for an early pension collection. So did I do the right thing in waiting?
I can't answer that question. What I can tell you is that the plan is still functioning as we sit here today.
Okay.
And if, your question was on the PBGC coverage, if the PBGC were to come in to cover the plan, then there is a statutory limit for an annual dollar amount, which I believe is somewhere in the $65,000-$70,000 range. So if your annual pension would total less than that, then it is likely, although the PBGC, I don't control them and I don't pretend to be an expert on them, it is likely that they would cover 100% of your pension at whatever point you elect, whether it's early or standard retirement, up to
Okay.
that cap, up to that 65, 70,000 cap. And it's per person. The cap is per person. It's not per plan. So it's my understanding with this plan that there may be one or two people that their pension calculation is or would be slightly above the cap of the PBGC. Everybody else is underneath that. So if PBGC came in, then your pension would be protected for the full amount.
Okay. I apologize in the beginning. I didn't realize you could hear me.
No,
You ended
that's-
up muting me.
Yep, that's fine.
I
Yeah, no, as I
apologize.
started, my screen has a yellow box when somebody else is talking. So just to get the background interference off, I started muting people as they started coming up like that.
Okay.
All right.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Wayne. I do have a question. Pamela asked, is there any time limit by which the diocese has to respond? As of right now, the answer to that is no, because we haven't filed anything. Once we file with the state court, then there is a period of time under the state rules by which the diocese would be required to object. Under Judge Stern's rules, it is no less than 3 days before the hearing. And then under the federal court, same thing, there are rules once we file in federal court that dictate when the diocese or any party for that matter who wants to object would have to object. And so once we file something, there is a time limit, but as of right now, there is not a time limit. Any other questions?
Stephen,
Yes.
couple of things. First of all, what would make you file for about the diocese of the bishop? You said once we file, they'll have 3 days. What is the factor that makes you file?
So I need to get Judge Stern to approve the settlement so that I can bring it
The what?
to approve the settlement.
Oh, you're
So-
talking about if they choose to settle out of court.
No, I'm talking about the diocese chooses to object to the settlement that I have had with Prospect and Angel.
Oh, okay. All right. I
Okay.
misunderstood. I'm sorry.
So I do not have a settlement with the diocese, and they are not part of the settlement that Prospect and Angel have negotiated with me. I have to get court approval from both state court and federal court. And in order to get that approval, I have to file a request to approve it. Once I file, for example, in the state court, then the diocese or any party will have the ability to object to that if they want to. And the court rules require that that objection be filed no less than 3 days before the hearing on the motion to approve.
Okay.
In federal
Got it.
court, there are similar timeframes. They're longer, but there are similar timeframes that any party, the diocese or any other party would have to comply with in order to properly object if that's what they wanted to do.
One other question that I have, when this settlement occurred with Prospect and Angel Pension, 4 of us received an email from Arlene Violet explaining what had gone on, et cetera. And in that email, she made note of the fact that once you filed for ERISA, that the 3 attorneys, the 3 separate attorneys, the one for the union, John Brigette and Arlene, no longer had any right to interfere or whatever with that. Can you explain that? Because I had never heard that before.
When you say never had a right to interfere, you mean the settlements?
Yeah, I'll read you what she said. She said, I had no power in either agreeing or disagreeing with it. Once Stephen filed for federal pension coverage, that act effectively canceled the individual lawyers from taking any separate action. Since the sine qua non of that application required all class members treated equally.
Yep. So
I have no idea what sine qua non is, but.
It's the end result.
Oh, okay, all right.
So, but what Arlene is saying there is that the federal lawsuit is a class action suit.
Mhm.
And so the class action lawyers are Wistow, Sheen, and Lovely, and they represent now all members of the class, which are all of you. So, so now the individual groups or any individual person cannot object individually. You can't have like a section of people. It's the class. Either it's similar to like a union. Everybody who's in the union has to accept a collective bargaining agreement, whether or not they like it or they think it works for them individually, because
Mhm.
it's been negotiated collectively. Class action is really kind of works the same way, where Wistow, Sheen, and Lovely is the class attorneys that have been approved by the court.
Mhm.
So every member of the pension is being defended in the federal court litigation through Wistow, Sheen, and Lovely via the class action. And that's why that suit has not only me as a plaintiff, but some of your colleagues are individually
Right.
named. And what you might notice if you saw that is that each one of those people that are named in addition to me as plaintiffs, I think two of them came from Arlene's group, two came from Castle's group, and two came from the union.
Correct. Correct.
So that way each group had a plaintiff or two as a named plaintiff in the class action suit.
Same guy that was asking questions.
Okay. Does
Thank
that
you.
answer everything, Marilyn?
It does. Thank you.
You're welcome. I did get a question, which is the state and federal lawsuits are going regarding when it was no longer a church plan. Doesn't the diocese have to continue responding to those lawsuits? The answer to that question is yes. The settlement between Prospect and Angel does not impact in any way, shape, or form the litigation as it pertains to the diocese. Those lawsuits continue as to the diocese, and whatever timeframes the court has imposed by which things must be filed or anything like that continues as to the diocese. Because of the settlement, there's a stipulation to stay the litigation with regard to Prospect and Angel, with the idea that we have settled and ultimately we're hoping that the court approves it. Obviously, if the court doesn't approve it, then a settlement goes away and we're back at square one. Right now, the settlement is in place. The litigation is stayed as to Prospect and Angel, and it continues as to the diocese.
That's your sister. Oh.
Any other questions?
Yes,
Yes, Pamela?
yes. I didn't realize you could hear me just now.
Yep.
When I sent that question to you regarding the time limits for the diocese, I
Yep.
wasn't referring to the recent settlements.
Okay.
I'm questioning how long can they drag things in court? Is there any time limit? Like you mentioned, I mean, maximum, say 10 years. Is that, I mean, can it just go on?
The litigation,
Ever?
the court sets deadlines for things to be filed, for hearings, for trial, things of that nature. So the court and the rules dictate when things have to be filed and when they can be heard. What I meant when I started talking about timeframes of like 6 years, 7 years, 10 years, is let's assume for the moment that the diocese gets an adverse ruling and a judgment against them in federal court. Let's say we go all the way through litigation where they want a decision from the court and the court enters a decision against them. They then have their appellate rights and they can then appeal it to the circuit court. And then if they lose there, they could then seek an appeal up to the Supreme Court. So the idea and my timeframes are just making sure that everybody is aware that even if we finish litigation in state court, in federal court, that there are appellate rights that a losing party can pursue should they wish to. It's not automatic. They would have to elect to do it. But just because we may get something happening via judgment in the federal court, the district court with Judge Smith, doesn't mean it's over. It could continue on and on. That does not mean that the diocese or any party would necessarily be able to to delay it beyond the timeframes that the court has set. Like I said, the court and the rule set the timeframes by which things must be filed and heard. But that doesn't mean that this could not drag on for several years. And then if appeals are added to that, we can go several years further. I'm hopeful,
You know,
just like I've said to you since day one, that I'm going to be able to settle with the diocese in the same way that I was hopeful that I could settle with Prospect and Angel and Charter Care Foundation and all of them. You know, that hope will only be a reality if the diocese, at this point, assuming the settlement with Prospect gets approved, they'd be the only remaining defendants. And my hope of settlement is only as good as their willingness to settle. You know, I'm hopeful that we can get that settlement or a settlement done. But I am not, I'm not saying I'm not going to litigate. If we have to litigate, we will litigate. And we'll move it along as quickly as we can, but the process is the process.
Okay, thank you.
All right?
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
Steve, John,
Yes.
will there be a fairness hearing? And if so, would you explain what it is?
A fairness hearing on this settlement?
Yep. Yes.
So there will be a fairness hearing before Judge Smith. And what that basically is let's assume for the moment that there is no objection to it and nobody raises any questions of fairness. If you guys remember, with the settlement with the old entities, there was an allegation of collusion, that the parties colluded to enter into that settlement at the time that they did. So anything can happen. The fairness hearing will happen in front of Judge Smith. I can't give you the time frame, John, but it will happen in front of Judge Smith, where Judge Smith will rule on the, I guess I'll say, the prudence of the settlement. Is the settlement a fair and reasonable settlement for the litigation, the claims, the potential for recovery, the potential risk to not recover, all of those things. Judge Smith will look into all of those things, and he will ultimately render a decision on whether or not the settlement is fair and reasonable and should be allowed and to be entered into on behalf of the class. If he does that, which he did that in the other two settlements, then obviously that gives us the ability to sign those agreements and to effectuate those settlements. Again, there could be a challenge to that, which would go to an appeal, but that's only if a party wishes to do that at that point in time. As you guys remember, in the last one, nobody appealed it. So once Judge Smith ruled on the fairness and reasonableness, it was done. Judge Stern also has, I guess, what you would call a fairness hearing. He also looks at it to see if it's in the best interest of the plan to enter into the settlement, which obviously, if he says he believes it's in the best interest of the plan, you know, it's no surprise that these judges not only know each other, but respect each other. And that obviously goes a long way to having Judge Smith look at the same exact settlement and indicate that one of his colleagues over on the state side already reviewed it and thought that it was fair and reasonable. Doesn't mean it's a rubber stamp by Judge Smith, but he will look into it, and he will have hearings on any challenges to the fairness of the settlement and the reasonableness. Does that answer your question, John? You're on mute.
Sorry, I had muted it, but yes.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? No other questions. If there are none, I will, if anything comes up, just like we did on this one, we scheduled this for a shorter time around. We were usually doing about 6 to 8 weeks. We did this one on, I think technically it's less than 4. And I will do the same thing if something comes up that I believe either needs clarification or I need to just give you all the ability to ask questions and see what is going on. I will tell you, I'm happy about the settlement. I am pleased that the parties got together. It was not easy. It took a very long time to get there. But at the end of the day, I believe it is a good settlement. And that's why I'm going to be recommending it to Judge Stern to allow me to go across the street and present it to Judge Smith. And like I said, using the cash position that we have as of the end of November, this money would put us above in the 90s, which the plan hasn't been in the 90s since I've been here as of August 2017. So anything that replenishes is good. Anything that puts us above is even better. As you all know, the market's been strong with a new administration coming in. I don't know if that's going to continue, but our rate of return for the past year has been over 8%, which I had put in a conservative position on the investments as I saw the market changing and becoming volatile. And even with that more conservative, we're at 8%. I am reviewing it again with Mercer, and we're going to change it if we feel it's appropriate to change it again to try to maximize the value of these assets. But we're in as, it's like Groundhog Day.
That's a con, 7 million a year.
in terms of
Like
cash.
that.
And I'm happy that we're there, and I'm happy we have a larger cushion now where we have time to fight with the diocese to
We
the
may
extent
die with a pension one of these days.
several years.
That would be good.
All right. If there are no other questions, I'm
And I
going
mean,
to
when we get
wish
this
you
to
all a happy remainder of your Monday holiday and a happy new year, safe to everybody. Hopefully the vaccines will be coming out, and when we're talking somewhere in June or July, it might be in person, and we'll go from there. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank
Happy
you.
New Year. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you very